Seeing Goku pull out his old power pole for this scene, honestly, it makes me emotional, man. It really does. It's like, we knew it was coming thanks to the PV trailer, but it is still just insane to think in 2024, modern day, we are actually seeing Goku hold his iconic accessory, the power pole, to be able to fight with. And it really kind of puts in perspective just how Goku's fighting style has evolved from this point, and how he relied on the power pole when he was younger to when he no longer relied on it, but also just how his fighting style was more of him throwing his whole body at his opponent instead of keeping them at arm's length and using the distance, like, you know, for instance, the power pole, to be able to space his opponents between him. And I like what this episode does. It kind of dives into the core aspects of martial arts and what Master Roshi and Kami and everyone taught Goku in the OG Dragon Ball, kind of coming to the forefront of this story, especially with this little scene. I really like that. I really love just the nods and love that Dragon Ball Daima is doing for the franchise. People were very quick to write off Daima because obviously the plot, let's be completely blunt here, I can't even deny it, the plot does look a lot like Dragon Ball GT, and let's be honest, when it comes to the discussion around Dragon Ball GT, it is pretty negative. The only positives people really have from Dragon Ball GT is a few things: Super 17, Super Saiyan 4, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, the Black Star Dragon Balls to an extent, and obviously Omega Shenron. Those are the big things that people are a big fan of when it comes to GT. Everything else, people like to forget about to a certain degree. Personally, I'm not a hater of Dragon Ball GT. In fact, I like it. I love it. I remember when I first watched it decades ago now. Decades ago at this point. When it first came out on VHS, I remember crying on the final episode of GT. I remember literally seeing the end of Dragon Ball pop up, where you see Goku in his blue gi and he like flies up and all that, and you know, it's basically the narrator says this is the end and the final story of Goku and everything. I remember when that final moment happened in the VHS and it concluded, I remember crying and then taking a shower and crying in the shower. Call me cringe or whatever you want, but that's what I did back in like the early 2000s when I watched it for the first time. I really like GT. It holds a special place in my heart. I know it's not perfect by any means, but it was enjoyable at its time. But anyways, getting into the main point, obviously people have been very quick to write off Daima because it feels like it's retreading the steps of Dragon Ball GT, aka the main cast of characters being shrunken down to basically their childlike forms. It's not just Goku this time, but it's the entire cast, but also you have it to where, like, it feels very more or less like it's trying to do the exact same thing, going on this adventure and all that, trying to bring back the magic of, let's say, Dragon Ball, what Dragon Ball Super tried to do, and so it makes a lot of sense. But I want to be blunt here. Hot take, extreme hot take probably. I'm liking the beginning of Daima more than I like the beginning of Super, and it's not because of the art and animation. No, I mean, yeah, the art and animation is a huge boom, like it's a bonus, definitely, with Daima, but the story beats and just the essence of Daima feel more in line with the vision of what Akira Toriyama would want. That's at the very least what I get from Daima's first two episodes. It feels like it is in line with not just like the seriousness of the story, but the adventure, the mystery, and the comedy. It was a very good blend throughout this episode and the previous episode, and I think that is the magic of Dragon Ball, how it's able to blend those emotions into its writing. And Akira really was doing some excellent work with this. This was obviously his final project for Dragon Ball before his untimely passing, which, may he rest in peace. It's crazy to think just how much love and dedication. This really does feel like his farewell story. Like, really feels like he wanted to dedicate this to the fans and the people that really loved his series all these years, but also him showcasing why he loves this series too. His acceptance of Dragon Ball and all that, the stuff he created all these years, is very beautiful. And it's really sad to see a lot of people writing off Daima because of very surface level aspects, when in reality, I gotta be honest, this is the best that Dragon Ball's kind of been since, I mean, Dragon Ball's kind of been good recently. I mean, with Broly's movie, superhero. It's been very good. I mean, and that's not even counting the games like Sparking Zero. But I mean, if we're disregarding like some of the stuff from Dragon Ball Super, Daima really is a step in the right direction for the anime of Dragon Ball. I really do think that in terms of art style and the showcasing of a lot of things with the lore drops and stuff, it's great. So let's get into that. For one thing in particular that isn't really that important, but I think is very relevant to the discussion of this episode, is the fact that we come to find out that Corin and Turtle haven't been reduced to children. And, aka, what this basically means, and it might be an oversight, this could be an oversight, but what this pretty much means is that Corin and Turtle are not viewed as friends for the cast, the characters. Like, they're not viewed as Goku's friends that helped with Majin Buu or anything. And to be fair, Turtle didn't really do anything, or Corin really didn't either. But even then, you have people like Puar. Puar is turned into a freaking kid again. So it's just like, you're telling me Corin and Turtle, that has technically been cast to characters with the whole group for a very long time, didn't get turned into kids as well? That's a little bit funny. It's funny. It's basically saying that, you know, they aren't actually friends of Goku and them. But anyways, disregarding that for a second, we do need to talk about the lore. And one of the big pieces of lore that I think is incredibly important is the stuff about the Demon Realm and how Piccolo himself is actually aware of it. And I know a lot of people are going to write this off as maybe, let's say, I guess, a retcon, or it feels like a plot hole, but in reality, it doesn't. Now, I don't think when it was first written, like when Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z was first written, I don't think Akira Toriyama was probably planned, maybe, for, like, this story of Daima. I don't think he planned for all this different details that come out with the lore drop, but it does perfectly fit in like a Lego block into a nice puzzle. Like, it feels like a perfect foundation, and it doesn't feel like it ruins anything, and let me explain. Basically, Piccolo is aware of the Demon Realm, and everything we know up to this very point of the story, before Daima, obviously, it was very clear Piccolo didn't know much about his heritage. Like, for instance, he didn't even know he was a Namekian. He just knew he was different. Like, he was someone that split from Kami, or the original Piccolo split from Kami. They were basically orphaned on Earth, and then, you know, Piccolo was born eventually, and he didn't even really know his heritage until Vegeta and Nappa told him. And also Raditz. And when he found out about this, he wanted to see Namek, his homeland. So he got to go see Namek. He went to Namek. He saw his heritage, his homeland. And, you know, he didn't know anything. He was learning all about his culture. And eventually, he encounters Nell, the first Namekian he ever encounters on the planet of Namek that is dying. And he fuses with him. He merges. Now, we know from the early scenes when he fuses with Nell that Piccolo is capable of accessing knowledge from Nell. For instance, he knew instantly who Dende was in the Frieza saga. He knew. He instantly recognized Dende. It was very clear what Akira Toriyama was trying to state with those brief scenes, is that Piccolo definitely gained all the knowledge that Nell had on him, and even the names and stuff as well. So that's how he knew Dende. So it isn't far-fetched to assume that Piccolo would be unaware of the Demon Realm, because let's put this in perspective. Nell obviously was a legendary warrior on the planet Namek. He was learning to be the strongest fighter there, and then not including Guru as well, that probably was, before he was very old, was probably really strong as well. And so when you factor all this in, it's like, it's clear that Guru would, because of how old he was, and probably how much knowledge he had, he probably was very well aware of Neva and, you know, probably, like, the Demon Realm and all that, their origin story. It isn't that far-fetched. And most likely, Nell probably heard this in passing as well, that they come from, like, a different realm or Demon Realm and all that. So, with Piccolo fusing with Nell, it makes sense he would know. Once again, I don't think when that happened within the story that Akira Toriyama probably was planning on doing this with the story, but it fits in, like I said. It doesn't feel like a retcon. It doesn't feel like a plot hole. It fits perfectly in place. I do like the new lore. It does make a lot more sense. And I do think that, you know, finding out a lot about, you know, the realm, with Demon Realm, it makes a lot more sense to why the Namekians are just so powerful. But also what we found out as well with this episode, that the reason why they fled the Demon Realm is because they don't want to be ruled. The Namekians don't want to be ruled. They don't want to be, you know, they don't want to have a king or anything like that. They legitimately, they want to have their own life, so to speak. And I think that's very interesting, especially when we look at, like, Demon King Piccolo and, like, what he was trying to do. He was really the anti-Namekian. Like, when you really think about his story now, like Demon King Piccolo, he was the exact opposite of what a Namekian really wants to be. So I think that's kind of cool. But I also am curious, though, about Neva as well, and why he stayed behind. Like, from what we found out, apparently he's the legendary Namekian. You know, Piccolo is aware of him, so that's up in the air what that fully means. But whatever the case may be, for him to stay there at the Demon Realm, it's implied that his views on being ruled or whatever is different than the other Namekians. That's at the very least what I gather from this episode. So we could potentially, the final villain of, you know, Dragon Ball Daima might not be like Goma or anything, but could be like a new Demon King Piccolo kind of. For instance, Neva being like something like that. I could definitely see that plot point happening, which would be kind of cool. It would kind of be a callback to the OG Dragon Ball. It'd be interesting to see how Piccolo himself would face someone that's very similar to his father, but also just seeing how Goku would react as well. It'd be really cool. There's a lot of lore implications if that indeed happens. Now, speaking of lore, there is another little detail that this episode does, which I think is extremely awesome. And that is Shenron fixing a plot hole that has been plaguing Dragon Ball since the Broly movie. Hear me out. In the Broly movie, Chi wishes to Shenron to save Broly and send Broly back to his planet. And at that time, Shenron only used, you know, one wish and he disappeared, which is, it's weird. It's very weird because it's like, why would Shenron use one wish when he's definitely capable of more wishes? So when you factor that all in, it's like, what's going on there? Well, Shenron clarifies that he only gives extra wishes out as a bonus for regulars. Now, this definitely seems funny, and it's definitely comedic, but this adds a lot more character to Shenron, and it makes him not just a bona fide plot device, or a bona fide just wishing machine. He actually is a character. We've already seen extensions of this as well, like for instance with Beerus and him appearing and Shenron getting very flustered and scared. We've seen Shenron is a lot more than just like a dragon that just makes wishes. Like when he made a comment to Emperor Pilaf and all that in the Frieza movie, and when they were wishing for Frieza to be revived, basically, Shenron comments like it's unwise to be rude to a dragon. He was pretty much saying like, hey man, like, I'm capable of doing things. I don't think you should be kind of rude to me. And because clearly Shenron can pick or choose what he really wants to do. It's very clear he has some ability to deny things if he really does want to. So that's food for thought. So there is a lot of lore implications for Shenron that he can decide on some things. And I do think as well, the reason why he allowed 2 wishes in the Frieza movie is probably because of Pilaf. Now, even though Pilaf isn't necessarily, like, quote-unquote, completely a good person, Pilaf is technically, according to Shenron, he's kind of a regular. He's a little bit of a regular. So for him to allow, like, multiple wishes in that movie, with the Frieza movie, it falls perfectly in place with this as well. With the story he just mentioned, like, he only gives extra wishes as a bonus. I mean, it's kind of cool. I really like that. This is a nice little detail that corrects a huge plot hole within the Broly movie, and, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but even if it was or wasn't, this is great. This finally puts to rest that big issue some people had with the Broly movie. Anyways, disregarding all that, I do like that it's very clear from this, initial episode and setting up the stage for going into the Demon Realm that the story of Daima doesn't just want to make Goku the spotlight character. It's going to be sharing the spotlight with some characters that really haven't had the spotlight in a very long time. Let's get right into that. So, basically, the opening kind of highlights this, but it's obviously not just going to be Goku, it's not going to just be Vegeta as well. Bulma's going to be on, on this journey, and Piccolo is as well, Supreme Kai, and I think this is really nice, because, once again, it goes back into the essence of Dragon Ball, the sense of mystery and adventure. Like, when Bulma and the gang and Goku was venturing out to try to find Dragon Balls, fighting the Red Ribbon Army and all that type of stuff, it feels very in line with that feeling, like the core cast of characters having to do their own individual thing while they're doing stuff for the goal or the objective. In this case, the objective is to save Dende, get Dende back from Goma, but like, while they're in the Demon Realm, they're going to be exploring and seeing new things. So I'm glad that it's not just like Goku and Vegeta, but Goku, Vegeta, Bulma, Supreme Kai, and Piccolo going on this journey, because it means they will all have time to really have a spotlight. It won't just be the main character Goku taking up everything. And I do hope with Daima, I'm going to be honest with you, I hope we get some good Vegeta moments. I really do, because it's like, I don't want to get my hopes up, but Vegeta obviously gets shafted quite often within Dragon Ball. We all know this, he does. Like, he doesn't really get a lot of victories. He gets victories in terms of, like, the slice of life stuff with Bulma and all that. But I hope that in Daima, like, with, I don't know why I did that, Crunchyroll does this every so often. I hope, though, within Daima, that, we have a moment where Vegeta is actually able to succeed against a villain, and he doesn't fail. I would like to see him be able to beat an opponent that Goku is unable to beat. I really hope that Daima does that. But, anyways, I'll leave it at that. Overall, great and amazing episode. We got lore implications as well with the spaceship and stuff. Just straight up amazing. Anyways, I love you all. Be safe. Stay healthy. Chibi out.